A very good day to our lecturer, Miss Nick, and my fellow team members. Today, me and my team members, Alisa and Emmanuel, are about to present to you an infographic on A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. Summarizing, A Rose for Emily recounts the story of an eccentric spinster, Emily Gerson. An unnamed narrator details the strange circumstances of Emily's life and her odd relationships with her father and her lover, the Yankee rope worker Home Baron. She is seen buying arsenic, which the townspeople believe she will use to commit suicide with. After this, Homer Baron is not heard from again and is assumed to have returned north. Though she does not commit suicide, the townspeople of Jefferson continue to gossip about Emily and her eccentricities, citing her family's history. She is heard from less and rarely ever leaves her home. Unbeknownst to the townspeople until her death, hidden in her upstairs bedroom is Homer's corpse. This explains the horrid stench that Emily emitted from Miss Emily's house 40 years previously. By finding a single grey hair in the bed, the townspeople discover that Emily had been sleeping with a corpse. Next, I'll pass it on to Alyssa.
Thank you, Paramjit. In the following thesis, the first one is on the characterism of Emily. Emily is the object of fascination in the story. An eccentric recluse, Emily is a mysterious figure who changes from a vibrant and hopeful young girl to a closeted and secretive old woman. Devastated and alone after her father's death, she is an object of pity for the townspeople. After a life of having potential suitors rejected by her father, she spends time after his death with a newcomer, Homer Baron. Although the chances of his marrying her decreases as the years pass, bloated and pallid in her later years, her hair turns steel grey. She ultimately poisons Homer and seals his corpse into an upstairs room. Moving on to the setting of the story. Settling is usually pretty rich in Faulkner. Sim City style. William Faulkner created his own Mississippi County, Yoknapatawpa, as the setting for much of his fiction. A Rose for Emily is set in the county seat of Yoknapatawpa, Jefferson, and as you know, focus on Emily Gerson, the last living Gerson. But though Jefferson and its inhabitants are unique, we can see their town as any southern town during that period. The situation that arises in the story developed in large part because many Southerners who lived during the antebellum era didn't know what to do when their whole day of life. Lastly, in our thesis of this story, this is the two themes that can be identified: tradition versus changes. Through the mysterious figure of Emily Gerson, Faulkner conveys the struggles that comes from trying to maintain tradition in the face of widespread radical change. The power of death. Death hangs over A Rose for Emily. From the narrator's mention of Emily's death at the beginning of the story through the description of Emily's death haunted life the foundering of tradition in the face of modern changes. For the next part, I'll pass it over to Emmanuel.
Thank you, Alisa. All in all, Faulkner presents two visions of time in the story. One is based on the mathematical precision and objectivity of reality, in which time moves forward relentlessly and what's done is done, only the present exists. The other vision is more subjective. Time moves forward, but events don't stay in distant memory. Rather, memory can exist unhindered, alive and active, no matter how much time passes or how much things change. Even if a person is physically bound to the present, the past can play a vibrant, dynamic role. Emily stays firmly planted in a subjective realm of time, where life moves on with her in it, but she stays committed regardless to the past. Thus, the story has many thoughts that can be derived. One moral or ethical message of this story is the risk we take in wearing rose-colored glasses because we can't properly see the world when wearing them. Another moral of this story is that we need to find the balance between the morals of the old generation and the modern ideas of the new generation.
Here's my thought of the story. The first thing I noticed from the main character of this prose, Emily Gerson, is that she lacks human affection and contact. No man is an island, so if a man tried to live by himself without anybody, isolation and loneliness would soon take over his mind and body, which could cause him to do crazy things.
On my behalf, it was all gore and gothic, but the end seemed to be presented as a bittersweet tragedy. People do crazy things out of love, and it is no wonder Emily did it to Homer Baron so that she could preserve the presence of the first man who gave her a sense of love, security, and comfort.
As in, for me, we will never know what went on to Emily's mind, and we will never know what she did from all those days and years that she locked herself up in that house. I like the fact that the story was narrated in a neighbor's point of view, leaving the readers with sheer curiosity on what is happening inside Emily's house and what her true intentions are. That's all from us. Thank you for lending your ears.